G'day guys, welcome back to True Eagle. Let's talk about some trade rumours that are swirling a little bit about some key players for us. Elliot Yeo, Tom Barrass. I just thought I'd take this opportunity to give some thoughts on some stories that are coming out. Some of them a little bit hard to decipher, some conflicting stuff, but we're going to talk about it. First of all, sorry I made this bold claim that I was going to make daily Eagles content on this channel. The truth is I've just been trying to catch up and front end the week on True Footy. I have been jotting down plans for the rest of the week, the bye rounds, to make Eagles content. So by all means, let me know in the comments anything you want me to have a look at. I've got a number of ideas, 4 or 5 videos coming out soon. And in fact, this video wasn't even planned. This is probably just in a response to the trade rumors that have been circling. So let's discuss a couple of rumors around Elliot Yeo and Tom Barrass. So the Elliot Yeo one has been circling for a little while now. I think probably back when I was in America. So that was like a month ago, 6 weeks ago. So it's been around for a while, probably just haven't had the opportunity to talk about it. So to summarize, Elliot Yeo out of contract at the end of the year. He is 30 in October, obviously having an outstanding year. First year with the preseason since about 2019, I reckon. It's allowed him to not only be fitter, it's allowed him to play at stoppages again, rather than just being like a defender midfielder without the conditioning, continually getting injured. And yeah, there was a bit of a flare up with a groin, I think. I had a couple of weeks off, and for a player that's nearly 30, we can probably expect that. But overall, probably the most important, at least in the top 2, behind maybe Jake Waterman. Now, I'd probably even say Yeo as the most important driver of us this year with his work in the contested stakes, winning the ball out, showing great leadership as well. So I think it's worth, acknowledging the value and the impact that Elliot Yeo's had this year. As such, it's prompted some interest from other clubs given that he is out of contract. Now, those clubs, as far as I can tell, were Adelaide first and foremost, then North Melbourne more recently, and then I think Geelong has been a third club that was linked to at least being interested in Elliot Yeo. A lot of conjecture about, a West Coast underselling him. The West Coast perspective on Elliot Yeo, I can understand. If the speculation is even correct, there's a bit of a suggestion that we're unwilling to pay him too much. If that is even the case, I am skeptical that anyone actually knows anything, to be completely honest with you. But assuming that the reports are true and West Coast are balking at offering him too much money, I can understand this viewpoint when you consider the criticisms of the club over the last few years of offering relatively large and decently long contracts to players towards the end of their career. I mean, it's only more recently become a thing at West Coast to even offer players more than 1-year deals after they've turned 30. The fact that we are talking about Elliot Yeo getting a 2-year extension with a trigger for a 3rd year at the age of 30 to take him to 33, that's wild. Like that was definitely not a thing pre-COVID. And I do know that, someone like a Jeremy McGovern, Jamie Cripps, these guys got 2-year deals post 30. There was a suggestion that this was to reward them for their loyalty in taking pay cuts through that pandemic period. Maybe that's the same for Elliot Yeo as well. But yeah, I just want to say 3-year deal for a 30-year-old is, we're in new territory now. But long story short as well, you can understand West Coast's hesitancy and reluctance to back in a player that has had the injury history that Elliot Yeo has. So I think we have to balance those considerations. Elliot Yeo is such an important player to us right now, but the club is reluctant to make or repeat the same mistakes we've made over the last number of years, backing in players that just could not get their bodies right. Now, what is the material risk of offering Elliot Yeo 3 years or 2 years with a trigger for a 3rd? You'd imagine that trigger would be contingent on how much footy he's playing. So, if he does an ACL, touch wood, in his 2nd season, does that trigger get triggered? I don't know. We will never know the specifics of that, but there are little things that West Coast can do to protect themselves from, that situation unfolding. But what do we give up? What's the opportunity cost? Yeah, there's money, but given the list profile that we have, it's top heavy. Players probably taking pay cuts, probably getting phased out. Andrew Gaff probably won't get an extension, for instance. We're going to have money to splash. That money has to be spent. So I'm not too concerned about the size of the contract for Elliot Yeo. Like, he's been a champion player. The length aspect of it is the way where we have the vulnerability, and that's probably just having a senior player on the list until 33. Having said that, if that is the market rate, then we do need to be mindful of that. We can't lowball a champion player and expect him to not look sideways at deals from North Melbourne or Adelaide or Geelong to go play with some security and financial security. I think John Ralph mentions, his partner's pregnant. I think he's getting married this year or something like that as well. Family illnesses was also referenced. I don't know anything about that. I respect his desire to look around and consider the best option for him. So on the other hand, though, I can't help but be skeptical that Elliot Yeo would be seriously considering these. There's a bit of a suggestion that some of these rumours have been probably planted by Yeo's manager. I don't really know. I don't really know for sure. But, for instance, the Caroline Wilson came out and said that Yeo's been offered 3 years from North Melbourne. I think it was John Ralph came out and said they haven't even met. There's a lot of fake news going around. The amount of fake news in the AFL trade rumour space has ballooned out over the last few years. Another classic example is Fremantle being linked to Shea Bolton. And then I think Ryan Daniels came out and said the two parties haven't even met. So there's a bit of posturing here going on. I'm not too sure if Yeo is seriously considering. However, my viewpoint is probably just pay him what he deserves. I don't think we need to necessarily match what other clubs in Victoria and Adelaide are considering for him, if they are even correct. I think we can pay him what we believe is fair. I'm happy for that to be a decent amount, and I'm happy for us to potentially make it 3 years on the basis that we can put triggers in there to protect ourselves in such a case. But, when you consider the importance of Elliot Yeo to this football club right now as a mentor, you can see him, get stuck into players on the field. I hope that's in a constructive manner, but I think that leadership piece is important. We're going to have to maintain some experience on this list. And at the moment we have plenty, but we probably want to phase out the experience that probably isn't serving us so well. For instance, Gaff and Sheed, are they even going to keep their spot in the 22? That remains to be seen. Elliot Yeo is one of our best players still. So let's talk about what we would get if we gave up Elliot Yeo. Caroline Wilson also mistakenly described him as a restricted free agent. You're only a restricted free agent if you are at 8 years of service to your one club. Elliot Yeo has been with us since the end of 2013, which means he would have become an unrestricted free agent at 10 years with us, which would have been the end of 2023. So as far as I'm aware, Elliot Yeo is unrestricted. That means he can simply walk to another club, regardless of what our offer is. For anyone unaware, if he's restricted, it means if we match another club's offer, we force a trade. So then we would be up for potentially some free agency compensation if he did walk to a club. Now, we don't know exactly how free agency compensation is calculated. It's deliberately kept somewhat secret, but one of the key factors is the length of the contract. So there's the size of the contract, but also the length of the contract. So you consider, some big free agents that have moved over the last few years, we're talking 6-year contracts, 5-year contracts. There's probably been an 8-year contract somewhere. I'm not too sure, but either way, that's the sizable contracts. Elliot Yeo having only a 3-year contract will almost certainly prevent us getting band 1 compensation. Band 1 compensation is the pick after our first pick. So you can forget about Elliot Yeo for what would currently be pick 4. If we even assume it might be band 2 or band 3, band 2 is end of first round, which is probably around pick 20. Band 3 would be the first pick after our second rounder, so we're probably talking about a pick in the mid-20s. That is the best case scenario, I reckon, to get some compensation for Elliot Yeo. In my opinion, is it really worth getting pick 20 or pick 25? I mean, considering we'd probably just flip one of those for Liam Baker. I'm not super enthused, and I kind of think that Elliot Yeo's value to this football club is greater than that. I think there are other things we can do to continue to get draft talent, and I don't think getting rid of one of our best players right now is going to help us if we return to playing such an uncompetitive brand of football, and I think Yeo is one of those important players. So let's talk about Barrass. Barrass is an extension of this conversation because I don't think he's been as dominant as Elliot Yeo this year, but I still think, the combination of him and McGovern in this backline has really weathered the storm for us, considering they've had their work cut out. I think our backline has worked really well. So Barrass, by contrast to Elliot Yeo, is contracted to 2027. There was talk of him potentially leaving to Sydney. Was that last year? It feels like a long time ago now, but I think it was last year. He's 28. He turns 29 this year. By the end of 2027, he will turn 32. And given he's only 28, turning 29, to a contender or a team that is looking to contend, you can see the value of a guy in his prime, and he's probably still got a few years left of that. So we're not talking about a free agency situation here. We're talking about a genuine potential for a trade if this hypothetically was happening. Now, West Coast hold all the bargaining power here because he's contracted to 2027. Now, to quotes, there was a quote here that I found very questionable. This is from Cal Toomey, who was actually the person who reported this. And to be specific, he says, Collingwood and the Western Bulldogs are the two sides understood to be weighing up a pursuit of the 28-year-old. So to quote Toomey, he says he turns 29 this year. It would take a good offer to get him out. The Eagles were also looking at it and keen to do some work around keeping him with his deal, locking him in to stay. I just found that a little bit curious. It almost implies that we renegotiate his contract, extend it, make it larger. I mean, we don't really need to do that. I'm assuming Barrass was already happy with his previous deal. I mean, he's probably well paid. Either way, the only way this happens is if West Coast willingly let him go. So that is possible, like theoretically it's possible. It's not in our nature, but let's consider what we could potentially get if we traded out Tom Barrass willingly. The two sides that he's linked us to are Collingwood and the Western Bulldogs. Collingwood, first of all, are probably going to be in premiership contention. Neither of these sides are going to probably have top 10 picks. Neither of these sides have their own first round picks. The Western Bulldogs traded it with the Gold Coast Suns. Collingwood is now at Fremantle. So neither of them have a first round pick to offer us this year. Now, Toomey does go on and highlight that it's possible that trading into the future past 2025 is possible as early as this year. So both clubs hold 2025 first round draft picks. It is possible that the rules might be changed this year based on what Toomey says, that they could offer us a 2026 pick. So let's say we get potentially 2 first round picks from the Western Bulldogs for Tom Barrass, 2025 and 2026. Is this particularly juicy for us? Is there enough incentive for us to give away one of our best defenders? Considering as well, we don't really have a ready-made key positional replacement. I mean, maybe we ask for Jed Buslinger as part of the deal, I suppose. But delaying the assets so far in the future, I don't think helps us. I think we need some immediacy about any compensation we get for Tom Barrass. Consider the short-term cost. We are going to get weaker as a team if we lose Tom Barrass. We want, first of all, we want some decent picks. And I don't know about you guys, but I think Collingwood and the Western Bulldogs are unlikely to drop down the ladder over the next 2 years. Collingwood, is probably going to recruit, Josh Battle, maybe Bailey Smith, who knows? I don't see them dropping off hard, and even if you did see the possibility for it, it's still a gamble. And the Western Bulldogs list profile, I think, is going up. Like, they've got a lot of young talent who are about to pop, and I just don't think that is a worthwhile gamble for us. So long story short, it's hard to envisage the possibility that Collingwood or the Western Bulldogs could offer us enough to tempt us to give up one of our best players. It's also out of our nature, and I just don't think we would do it. Long story short, to summarize my view on these deals, I am probably against willingly giving up either of these players. If Elliot Yeo has his heart set on going, then fair enough. Maybe we get something out of it, but I'd rather keep him. I'm also, to summarize as well, very skeptical that much is actually true of this. So specifically, considering that Caroline Wilson came out and said that North were chasing Yeo, and then John Ralph immediately said, I don't think that's true. I think there's just a lot of fake news out there, and if it is true, I am skeptical that Yeo is actually keen to leave. I'm also skeptical that West Coast would be willing to let him go too easily. I think this is all posturing. And long story short, I don't think there's too much to be made of this. And yet here I am, 16 minutes into a video. But I thought it was worth discussing. I think it's an interesting thought exercise. We will have some decisions to make with some senior players. If there was a scenario where Barrass was being headhunted by a team with 2 top 10 picks, this would be a different conversation. I think back to Sam McClure criticising us earlier this year. He said we should have gotten rid of Tom Barrass because we could have got 2 top 10 picks, completely ignoring the fact that nobody had that to offer us. These things are all key. But let me know in the comments what you think. Like I said, also keen for you guys to give me some suggestions for other kinds of content throughout the buy rounds. And for now, I'll thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.